I'm going to tell you a story about my ex-wife, a covert narcissist, because I want it to be an example that hopefully you'll understand, maybe you'll relate to. But with my ex-wife, parts of her personality that I liked started just disappearing. And they only did once I would comment about how I liked that thing about her. Then it'd be gone at that second forever. If there is any clothing she liked and she looked good it was very flattering. And people would be looking at her like, damn, she looks good. And I mentioned that I love it too and that she gets good attention. It would just disappear. And I remember one time I thought that she was wearing a blouse. She had a very pretty outfit when her and I went on a date to a Korean barbecue restaurant in Chino, California. And I told her how much I liked it. And later on, I asked her about it. And if I had known this that day, there's a lot of things like this that I did not know and she did not want me to know. And if I had known this, I would have kicked her out right away and sent her right back to Indiana. And it would have saved my life, my future. As soon as she saw how much I liked it, when we got home, she threw it away. As soon as she heard how much I liked it. And it was like the nicest blouse that she owned, and it went right in the trash. They do this because they want to show you how much they devalue you. And they do this because they want you to feel like you're not worth it for them and you are not worth their time. Now, in this case, I was way out of my wife's league, way out of her league. And I gave up on life because I thought if I were to go out with someone like that and just basically serve them and make their life incredible, maybe I would have value to someone. But her being a covert narcissist, it did not work out that way, and she picked that up about me and took advantage of it. But through time, her clothes got yuckier and yuckier, and after just a couple of years, she was just dressing like a man that was wearing baggy clothes that really ran down. Um, she knew how much I did not like unhealthy food, and I did not like her eating unhealthy food, so all the good food went bad. We always had fresh produce in the house, always, and she would never eat it. She would say we have nothing to eat, and we would eat the worst junk. So after a point in time, every clothing that was even slightly or mildly attractive was thrown out. Even the stuff she ate was stuff that she knew I did not like people consuming, and then I got stuck consuming what she'd make for me. And then she was constantly a victim. And if she looked even remotely nice in any way and said that's nice, then she would talk about how she's more than just a set of boobs and blah, 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 and make it seem that because there was any type of value or goodness I saw her in any way made me a perverted guy and disgusting and nasty, and that mine was only on sex, and that was projection. That was projection because she was very much into just sex, very unhealthy sex, and I'm very much into who that person is as a human being, and she could not relate to that. But things around the house would go missing. Things as far as even time to myself to relax. It got to the point where my life, I had a complete deficit of any type of good, kind, enjoyable thing, pleasurable thing at all in any way, unless it was going out to have a nice dinner with her because she likes going out to eat. And what it turned into And I had mentioned this to her many times before, as far as the relationship that she wanted was for me to work hard, get home, leave her alone, let her play her games, then take her out for an expensive dinner and feed her, take her back home, and not bother her in any way, take care of her bills, take care of everything, and for her to live a life of total joy and relaxation and retirement, while she got to take satisfaction in me taking care of her, taking care of everything while being mistreated by her, and then having to go to work and then come back and be mistreated by her again, and then take her out to eat. It was terrible. But this is all part of the devaluation phase. It is intentionally done. And when I saw a psychologist and she mentioned that, and she was able to predict everything my wife did, and other parts, other phases too, and even say, did she say that she loved you in her own way? Did she say blah blah blah? Did she go out to get something to eat, come back, and then get you all the other sides except the main thing that she went out to get for you? Like, she just nailed it. And it wasn't until that I realized that this woman I lived with was such a burden that she only brought absolute chaos to my life with every single thing she did. She would think about it as far as in a way in order for it to somehow be harmful to me, unhealthy towards me, and psychologically or physically or whatever, or at least take out the goodness, the purity or the healing factor of it, take that out of it before giving it to me with everything. And then when bringing that up to her, she didn't take it seriously at all. She's like, haha, everything, that means 100%. It's not 100%, even if it's 99.99%. That's not everything. So you used it wrong. I was like, calm down, stop, stop, stop. I was like that. I told her, I know you're not joking. You're serious right now. You just heard how much you're harming me, and you decide to take that as an opportunity to try and cause harm to me and show me how you don't care about how you're harming me, and then saying that, ha ha ha, it's not 100% of the time because you say so, while you just showed me that we couldn't even do that. You couldn't even listen and say, oh, he's doing this bad thing, or I'm doing this bad thing to him. You heard it, and you're like, oh, he's saying that I'm always doing a bad thing to him. Let me go out of my way and cause harm and be vicious and act erratic and show hate towards him because he does not want to be mistreated and be shown hate, you know? And then she looked at that, she's like, oh yeah, so just attack me. I was like, see? But it really was 100% of the time. Absolute horrible with her, with every aspect of my life. And they will do that. They will think, how can I make this bad for them? How can I make that bad for them? When they're going to do a chore, they're going to make sure that they're not going to do it all the way in order for it to still be dirty and cause you anxiety. Make sure you're not going to be in a clean environment. And then talk about how they're not your slave and this and that, and how they're the victim because of what they're doing to you. Because they did not do the work that they should have. Therefore, they're the victim. And it's constant projection, constantly trying to flip everything. It is constant. And if you were to try and kill yourself, or if you did, then they're going to be like, oh, yeah, see, they did that. Now I'm a victim, and blah, 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 because they did that to themselves. So poor me. Completely incapable of any compassion, any love, anything at all. I remember when I was hospitalized because I attempted suicide to escape her. And I told two therapists this, three friends this, and my psychologist this, and I was surprised that each time I told each one this, every person gasped and froze. And that was once she saw what she did to me and how she pushed me to the edge, and I attempted suicide. And she once told me about how she knew a guy who attempted suicide, and the wife was, and he left a note as far as how he did it to escape his wife, and how the wife saw it and said, he was just weak. That's not my fault. He always dismissed it. She talked about how horrible and nasty and despicable of a fucking bitch that woman was to even say such a thing, and how she's just the worst of the worst, and how she couldn't even imagine that. But When I was hospitalized and she heard that, when I came out, she called me selfish for what she did to me trying to escape her. Because to her, it's like, yeah, I do this too. Like, your job is to exist and put up with it to the point of even suicide and continue to take the harm I do to you because I tell you that that's what your value is, that's your worth, and that's the reason you exist, is the reason I gave you to exist, to just cause you harm. There is no compassion for what I went through, but an attack that I would no longer be here for her to abuse. I told my psychologist, who's a world renowned, very well known, I'm not allowed to say his name, and I understand why once I looked him up. It's like, okay, this is why he doesn't want people to know who he is. He's a big deal. But when I told him that she said I was selfish, he looked up and he just froze and he said, "Sir, you need to get away from her as soon as you possibly can." And then I told one of my therapists, and she gasped and she looked at me and she said, "You need to get away from her quickly. You need to start finding a place and get away from her quickly." Then I had another therapist in group therapy, and I said it, and everyone in there gasped. And he looked at me and said, "You need to get away from her, sir, as soon as you can." Each friend gasped and was shocked. And I thought, okay, it's not just me. And then she told other people what she said to me, and they were all shocked. I'm not going to tell you how I know this, but it happened years later when I finally did an investigation on her. Counter surveillance, actually. It was counter surveillance. And people were like, who thinks that way? My point is, it really can get that bad. And again, as a covert narcissist, you can understand the psychopathy and why people are like, hey, these are psychopaths that are vulnerable psychopaths. They're vulnerable narcissist psychopaths, but they're psychopaths. And again, it's not a disorder. It's a personality type. So that's just scary ass shit. So understand that, yeah, it can get that bad. And this is all part of devaluing you. And with some people, like my ex-wife, would actually go online to forums with black magic and women who hated men groups and talk about the methods that they were going to implement on a man in order to devalue them so he loses all ambition in life. He loses who he is in life, and he just suffers a life of depression and just serves the woman and just gives up on life. And the point was to diminish him so he no longer has a life, but for him to stay physically alive in order just to work so you could live off of him. So those women exist. It's very similar to evil men that are very possessive and controlling of women. But due to the male brain and the female brain working very differently, uh, that's the difference that you see mostly between the two, what I've noticed. But yeah, it's important to understand how far they'll go to devaluing you. And it's important for you to understand that those things, as far as getting rid of those clothes, no longer giving you compliments, none of that stuff. And with my ex-wife, it wasn't just that either. She heard the things I hated about other abusive women that I've seen guys go through and would implement that as part of her personality. So for the last 3 or 4 years with her, she was nothing that I ever wanted. Everything about her that I liked was gone, and everything that I always wanted to avoid in a relationship, everything I was ever afraid of, everything that I saw that was horrible about every single terrible woman I ever met, she grabbed each horrible worst part of each personality and implemented that all the time at 100% to the point where that was the only type of thing I was around anymore. And it probably was not who she really was, but something that she was acting out in order to cause mental stress and anguish for me in order to keep me at a constant state of absolute anxiety. But yeah, there's that. So understand that phase as far as being devalued and what those actions mean because it's really important that you understand what that is.